My dad refused to spend Christmas with my bill, and now my mum is blaming my wife for everything. What should I do? Original post. This is a throwaway account as I have work colleagues on my mind that I don't want to know about my family drama, and spelling will be rubbish as I'm fuming right now. Obligatory names have been changed. So for the backstory, I 36F and married to the love of my life 36FK. We met when we were 17, she was out and proud whilst I was still in the closet, so we didn't start dating until I came out at 21. We got married in 2019 and have an adopted 4-year-old son Jack. This comes in relevant in a minute. My sister 27F Sarah has a long-term boyfriend 28M Steve who the family cannot stand. They've been together for 8 years and the whole family has hated him from the first time we met him. He is rude, obnoxious, arrogant, and all in all a crappy human being. He's also someone that likes to claim that he is just honest, but if someone is honest back to him he flips out and sulks like a toddler. In fact, my toddler is better behaved than him. He isn't abusive to Sarah and doesn't direct these comments towards her, it's just the rest of us. He's actually a good partner to her and treats her well, which is his one redeeming quality. My dad and Kay hate him the most and will do anything to avoid him at family gatherings. Kay usually just ignores him and brushes off anything he says to her as she doesn't like conflict. However, there have been a few occasions that she has said something back, but it's usually said in a joking manner which amuses my dad to no end. My mum is a peacekeeper and will do anything to avoid drama, so she just changes the topic whenever he starts, but she and my grandparents all hate him just as much as the rest of us. Sarah is the only one that obviously doesn't hate him. Our son's birth mother Tess was Kay's best friend, who sadly died in 2021. This was a real shock as she had an underlying heart condition that she didn't know about and simply went to sleep one night and never woke up. Jack had been left alone in his cot all day screaming for his mum before Kay got worried that Tess wasn't answering her texts and went to their house to see if she was okay. She found Jack in his cot and Tess in her bed. We adopted Jack as no one in Tess's family was in a position to take him in. We raise him as our own, but he knows who Tess is. Obviously this is a very sensitive topic for Kay as it was so traumatic for her and Jack. Now, on to what happened last weekend. It was the anniversary of Tess's death on Saturday, so Kay, Jack and I went to visit her grave. Kay is always quiet after going to see her, and this time of year is especially hard for her. On Sunday we had a family gathering at my parents' house. These happen every couple of months as just a catch-up for everyone. At first nothing was out of the ordinary. Kay and my dad were off to the side talking as usual, only I could see that Kay was obviously struggling, so my dad and her went for a walk so she could clear her head. This is something they have done before, so nothing too unusual. However, Steve had an issue with this and asked why they had left and why he wasn't invited to walk with them. I explained that Tess and Kay just needed a minute. This wasn't good enough for Steve though, and he said she should have gotten over it by now. At this my granddad, who is naturally a very quiet guy, said that his best friend had died over 20 years ago and he still had days where he missed him so much it hurt. You don't just get over something like that. Steve shut at that. Kay and my dad got back and she was in a much better mood. We all sat down at the table for our late lunch and started chatting. Everything was fine at first until Steve started trying to butt into Kay's conversation with my granddad. When it was obvious that they weren't going to include him, he very loudly stated, "This is bullshit. She's getting all the attention of everyone because her friend died 3 fucking years ago. Get over it for fuck's sake, we're all sick of hearing about it." The whole table went silent and I took one look at Kay and knew she was about to go off on Steve. Only it didn't happen the way I thought. Rather than exploding at him, she looked at him very calmly and said that her and Granddad weren't talking about Tess. They were making plans to take him to the Christmas markets, but if he wants to be a dick then no problem. She then went on to say to him that everyone in the family hates him because he's a toxic narcissistic fuckwad. That whenever he can't come to a family gathering the whole family is much happier. That there is a reason he has no friends and that his own family can't stand to be around him. That reason is that he's rotten from the inside out and that Tess may have only been on this planet for 32 years, but she made a bigger impact on people that he would have if he lived until he was 150. That her funeral was rammed with people because she was so loved, whereas he'd be lucky if anyone other than Sarah was at his. After that, she got up and went to the back garden and I followed her. A few minutes later my dad came out and said that he'd told Sarah and Steve to leave. We went back inside and Kay apologized to everyone and said she should have just kept her mouth shut. Everyone other than my mum told her what she had done was right and it was about time someone told him. My dad then found it hilarious that a lesbian had been the one to tell him straight, which lightened the mood a lot. We spent the rest of the afternoon there before going to pick Jack up from Kay's mum's house as she had had him overnight on Saturday for us. The reason I'm making this post is that yesterday I got a call from Sarah saying that she and Steve wanted an apology from Kay or they weren't going to Christmas. When I reminded her that we wouldn't be at Christmas either as it is our year to spend it with Kay's mom so it made no difference to us, she got really upset saying that she wanted an apology because Kay was way out of line. I said she wasn't and that I wouldn't even contemplate asking her to apologize because I agreed with everything she said and so did everyone else there. She ended the call and I just went back to work. Then today my dad called me and asked if Kay's mom would mind a few more for Christmas as he was refusing to spend it with Steve so he and my granddad needed someone else to go. Apparently after Sarah had called me she called mom and started ranting and my mom had told my dad to get Kay to apologize, which he said no to and they had an argument and my dad has now decided that he's done with Steve even if that affects his relationship with Sarah. He's not having it anymore. My mom wants Sarah there, and she won't go without Steve so my dad is going somewhere else and my granddad agreed with him. I texted Kay's mom and she said they were welcome so now my mom is furious and saying that my dad and Kay are ripping the family apart. So basically this has turned into a shit show. Kay has said she will apologize if I want her to, just to keep the peace but I've told her no way. Everything she said was true. I just don't know where to go from here and the people in my life all hate Steve so much that Kay could have physically attacked him and they would all still think she is in the right. So that's why I'm asking internet strangers who might have had to deal with difficult family members. What can we do to get into a place where we can be around each other amicably? I'm struggling to see a way right now. Wow, didn't realize how long this got until I went to post it. Sorry about that. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter. For things to be peaceful, both parties need to want it. Kay did nothing wrong, I wouldn't ever spend another moment with Steve. I would let Sarah know I love her and will see her anytime, anywhere but I'll never see Steve again. If you have one guest that basically wants to shit out on the holiday table, there's no path forward with them. OOP. If it was just Sarah upset, then I wouldn't care, but it's my mom. She tries so hard to keep the whole family together and she is devastated by what's going on. If it wasn't for her, then Sarah could go take a running jump for all I care right now. Sarah, this is the issue that Steve and Sarah don't see anything wrong in what he's done. It was just him being honest. I would be happier for her to apologize if Steve and Sarah admitted that what he said was in the wrong as well. Without that, I'm being stubborn about it. My dad told Kay he will fall out with her if she apologizes as she did nothing wrong. There was no screaming or shouting, she said it very calmly. I feel like I'm stuck between making my mom happy and doing what I believe to be right. To another commenter. My sister doesn't see anything wrong in what he says as he's just being honest, but loses it when someone is honest back. I don't understand her anymore. Mom, taking the high road and rising above it have been two of my mom's favorite things to say to us over the years. I just feel like enough is enough. He crossed a line this time that he can't come back from. I especially don't want my son around him when he's saying things like that about Tess. To another commenter. If I hear my mom say take the high road one more time I'm gonna scream. I'm sick of the high road, I've been on it for 8 years. I'm happy on the low road now. Later that day, OOP, well I've just found out that my granny and pa, my mom's parents, are going to my uncle's for Christmas and Steve is not invited, so it looks like it's going to be just Mom, Sarah and Steve for Christmas this year. How OP feels about that? Vindicated as my mom is like her parents, they're all peacekeepers and if ever they have had enough then it just shows that he's not just stepped over the line, he's ran right past it. Mom. Kay's mom has already told her that if she changes her mind, then she is welcome at her house. Even if it's Christmas morning, she is more than welcome. Obviously Steve and Sarah aren't invited at all, but it's good that my mom has the option at least. Later reflection. I have realized that he has been trying to target Kay and my dad's relationship as they're very close. They have traveled all over the country visiting class car shows together which Steve has tried to get in on, but he doesn't know anything about cars so there's no point in him going even if they did like him. I actually think he's been trying to push Kay and I out of the family so that he gets my dad to himself, even though my dad can't stand him. Update post. Hi, I know how much this community loves an update so I thought I would give you one as things seem to be sorting themselves out, kind of. After I wrote my last post a few things happened in the next couple of hours. First thing was that I spoke to my grandparents on my mom's side. They were there when this all happened, but they're like my mom and just constantly try to keep the peace, that's where she gets it from. They were supposed to be spending Christmas with my mom this year but had changed their minds and decided to spend it with my uncle instead. They have made the decision to not be around Steve either as he causes too much drama. They asked if they could come and see us and Jack on the 23rd before they head off to my uncle's, which I happily agreed to. This really surprised me and it outright shocked my mom, as like I said they are the biggest take the high road type people I've ever met, but even they'd had enough. The next thing that happened was my dad called to let me know that Steve and Sarah had now decided that they want Kay to make a public apology in front of the whole family and admit she was lying and that the family loves Steve. He was laughing as he told me this and called them delusional, so any small chance of a superficial apology went out the window. The third thing that happened was Jack getting home from the after-school club with a recorder that I'm sorely tempted to shove up the teacher's backside. So all in all, it wasn't a great day. Through talking to people on here, I also realized that Steve has been trying to push Kay and I out of the family. Organizing trips that he knows we would be able to go on. We wouldn't have gone on them anyway, as a weekend away with him sounds worse than a paper cut to the eyeball, and him constantly trying to get my dad away from Kay whenever we are all together. I think this is because he is jealous of Kay and Dad's relationship, as they're very close and go on trips to classic car shows several times a year together, usually with my granddad as well. Anyway, things went quiet for a few days until the weekend. Our town has a big Christmas fair that runs from November through December, and we always go to it with Mom, Dad, Granddad, and Kay's mom. We decided to cheer my mom up a bit to go on Sunday and then out for dinner after. My mom was told that if Sarah or Steve showed up then we would all leave, and she promised they wouldn't be there. Things were a bit awkward at first, but settled after a while. At one point Jack got my mom and dad to take him on the giant snow slide, and as my mom walked back over to us she had tears in her eyes. I pulled her to one side to see what was going on, and she said that whilst waiting in line, Jack had said he was happy Uncle Steve wasn't here. When my mom asked why, he said that Uncle Steve was a bad man. My mom tried to say that he wasn't, but in typical stubborn 4-year-old fashion, he had argued and said he learned in school that people who say mean things all the time are bad people, and Uncle Steve said mean things all the time, so he was a bad man and that he didn't like him. There had been a case of bullying in his class a few weeks ago, and the teacher had done a lesson on how wrong bullying is, so I think that's where this came from. This finally broke through to my mom. If even a 4-year-old can see what a horrible prick the man is, then she had to as well. She said that she felt stuck because she hated Steve and agreed with everything that Kay has said, but she loves Sarah and doesn't want to isolate her. I told her I would always be there for her, but I wasn't putting myself, Jack or Kay through being around Steve again, and she needed to think about what she wants. Not what I want or Dad or Kay or Jack or her parents or Sarah or Steve, but what she wants. She went quiet and then said that Kay's mom had told her she was welcome at hers for Christmas if she wanted to, and that she could decide on Christmas Day if she wanted. Kay's mom would save her a plate. We went back to the group, and a little while later I saw Mom and Kay's mom having a deep discussion whilst walking behind us. Neither will say what they talked about, but Mom seemed a bit happier after their talk. They have also been talking since, as yesterday my mom told me that she will be coming to Kay's mom's for Christmas, and they've been talking about going shopping together next week. When Mom told Sarah after calling me, Sarah predictably lost her mind and said that Mom was choosing us over her. My mom told her she was choosing to have a good Christmas rather than being belittled and made miserable, all for the sake of Steve and his so-called honesty. Sarah then called me and asked if I was happy that I'd won. She then did the unforgivable and used a few homophobic slurs towards me and Kay and called Jack the bastard of a whore. I ended the call, blocked her everywhere, and then let my family know what had happened and that I never wanted to speak to her again. They're all as appalled as I am, and my granny, Mom's mom, called Sarah and apparently told her she was dead to her, as she won't have a bigot in the family. Sarah has been trying to reach out to apologize because she knows she has stepped over the unforgivable line, but I've just kept blocking the fake accounts that she's making on IG. Steve tried reaching out to my dad after this, and when he eventually answered, Steve tried to say that Sarah was just angry and didn't mean it. According to Mom, Dad ended up giving him a verbal lashing and told him that he was the worst thing that had ever happened to Sarah and our family. My dad has told Sarah he is disgusted with her, but will be there for her if she leaves Steve. Until then, good luck. Mom has gone low contact as well, but wants to keep the door open so that Sarah is not completely isolated. I had a few people saying that Steve may be abusive towards Sarah, but I really don't think he is. He usually acts like a dick when the attention isn't on him. He knows that when he says dickish things, then all the attention is on him and he revels in it. After Sarah's outburst, I just think that they're both toxic and feed off each other's toxicity. She lets him get away with the things he says because she gets pleasure out of watching us all bite our tongues and keep quiet. So, Mom's angry, Dad's angry, our 3 grandparents are angry, extended family are angry, and Kay is being my rock, but I can tell she's really angry about what she said towards Jack. I'm just sad and done with it all. At least now I know what she really thinks about Jack, Kay and myself, so there's that. Not the perfect update, but we move on. It will be nice this Christmas to have both sides of the family together for the first time and not have to worry about Steve being a dick, but I'm sad that this is how my relationship with my sister has ended. I'm trying to get into the Christmas spirit, but it's a tough one right now. The only things that make me smile are Kay and Jack being goofy idiots to cheer me up, however the recorder can go to hell. I curse whoever invented the thing, like seriously, fuck you. Thanks for all the support in my original post and opening my eyes to a few things. Maybe internet strangers are the way to go for advice after all. Hope you all have a good Christmas/holidays. Some of OOP's comments. Commenter, I don't think the Dickish Bill and Sarah saga had concluded. I'm glad you'll have a peaceful Christmas in theory. I just think the pair of them are not convinced yet that they're shut out. OOP. It wouldn't surprise me if they try and turn up to my parents for Christmas, but we won't be there so they won't get far. As long as they stay away from me, Kay and Jack, then I don't care what they do. Commenter. Many small children playing recorders with more enthusiasm than skill follow Steve everywhere. OOP. This just made me laugh a little too hard. Thanks for that. Editor's note. Wasn't sure whether to mark this one as concluded or ongoing. I've tentatively marked it as ongoing, but I'm happy to change it. Now to the next story, story 2. My boyfriend wants more intimacy, but it's exhausting me. How do I talk to him about it and find a balance? Original post. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years now. He is my first relationship and even my first kiss. We met at university during activities, became friends and then started dating. He is so polite and kind and also really sweet and smart as well. We can talk about our common interests and hobbies for hours on end. Since I was a virgin in the relationship, he was not. We took it slow and only had sex when I was ready, which was about 8 months after we became a couple. After that we had sex about once every 1 or 2 weeks, depending on if we found the time during our studies and if we were exhausted. Sometimes during exam time we had it once a month or every 5 weeks. But slowly he started to initiate more and more. At first I didn't mind and loved the attention he was giving me. I felt attractive and beautiful, which helped my body image issues a lot. Soon it turned into him asking for it every single day, sometimes twice a day during weekends or if we have a slow day with little work and studies. A month ago we went on a vacation together and he basically jumped on me as soon as we got into our hotel room. We barely got to do anything as he wanted to have sex 2 if not 3 times a day. I came back so exhausted from the vacation. I even started saying no to him eating me out, or role play or switching in position, just to get it over with sooner. At this point sex does nothing for me anymore. The mere action and physical stimulation feels enjoyable, yes, but just sex without anything else just isn't worth the time or effort for me. I need a story and emotion with it, lots of dirty talk and role-playing and some hot situations. I know that takes time and effort to prepare, but it gets me going wildly. But even if I could have that every day I wouldn't want it. It's literally physically too exhausting. Also I feel like too much sex kinda destroys the magic. I know that he takes a lot emotionally and sexually out of sex. It's making him feel loved and desired and I don't want to take it from him, but I actually caught myself don't doing any makeup anymore and not wearing tight or short clothing but baggy ones instead to maybe deter him from wanting sex so much. TLDR, my boyfriend started initiating sex more and more. I find it exhausting and can't take it anymore. How do I negotiate fewer sexual encounters without making him feel unloved? Update. I spend a lot of time reading through everyone's replies and looking inwards about how I feel. I gathered my thoughts and spent a few days making a list of what I wanted to say when we had the big conversation. On a weekend when we had planned to spend the day together, I sat him down and told him the following points. I love him to the moon and back and want to show him that I love him, make him feel desired, loved and appreciated, but having so much sex with such frequency is physically exhausting to me, which causes me to avoid sex and even sex acts I enjoy because I don't have enough energy and motivation to do it. This also causes me to orgasm not as often anymore. I also need time to physically recover before it may even start to become painful. I feel like sex has become the single defining aspect of our relationship and many other parts like doing activities together, romantic dates, just talking and cuddling have taken a backseat. I also feel exhausted emotionally and underappreciated from giving as much as I can, which I gladly do for the people I love, while little comes back from the other side of the relationship. I then proceeded to explain the things I like during sex and what makes me go wild, hoping to show him that I still want to have sex with him. I also made a few more compliments just to keep the vibe positive and because I meant it. He reacted pretty well, all things considered. He listened and let me finish, but asked for a little time to think about it. Obviously I gladly agreed. We spend the rest of the day together without him initiating once. At the end of the day he said that he wants me to enjoy sex just as much as he does and that he loves me. I was really hopeful for the next week and a half. We spent our time together like usual and he asked for sex about 1/2 as often as before our talk. We even had days without sex at all. He also started to ask, Do you want to have sex with me? Instead of physically initiating like he did before, like touching me somewhere, hugging me from behind and similar things. He also stopped asking for pictures of me, and when he did it were just selfies. I was so happy that I even took the initiative once, and he seemingly loved it when I asked for sex. Then one day he sat me down with a stern look and said that he hated what this relationship has turned into. To him it feels like we are now just roommates or platonic friends instead of lovers. He told me that the one time I initiated after he was overjoyed to finally fuck me again, his heart was broken because I suddenly wasn't as submissive as usually. I asked to be eaten out and was on top with some more dominant dirty talk, and that all of that is not what he signed up for. He doesn't want to walk on eggshells waiting for me when I'm finally in the mood, but has what he deserves in the relationship. Basically, he gave me an ultimatum. Either we return to how it was before the talk starting right now, or he leaves me. Guess who doesn't have a boyfriend anymore? I spent the last few days bawling my eyes out and eating lots of ice cream and watching some shitty shows. What he said hurt me a lot, and I do not love him anymore, but still the feeling of loss and sadness is all too real. He was my first relationship, and for the past 2 years he was my entire world. No, I have to gather up the broken shards he left behind. TLDR, I took your advice and talked with him about my feelings. He pretended to be okay with it for a while and then left me after demanding more sex again. OOP added more info in the comments. Comment 1: I have an update if you want more information. I have a pretty high libido as well, and I love good, sensual sex, and I want it quite often, as I can go multiple times a week, but it was so often that we basically didn't do anything else besides it, and he was emotionally checked out when the possibility of sex wasn't on the table. It was so much that I was physically uncomfortable. Not to mention his really bad behavior once I told him I wanted a break sometimes. I had difficulties saying no, because I wanted to make him feel loved that way, until I realized that he just wants to take everything he wants from me without giving any emotional connection, romance, or care for me as a person. I hate that people throw around this sexual incompatibility argument, because if he said he wanted someone he can fuck at least 2 a day anyway he likes, and I can't and don't want to do that, that would be one thing. But he shouted at me, demanded we do it how he likes it, and that I apologize for ruining everything by voicing my concerns for my well-being. He also said that he deserves to just take everything he wants from me. So please keep that in mind when you do your judgment. Yes, we are not together anymore. I cut him off after his scary tantrum. Comment 2: thank you for your empathy and for the added context. I know that my update gave more information, but that's also because I didn't see a lot of the stuff he did to me and didn't do for me after that tantrum. Until that point I wanted to give everything to him, because I was head over heels for him, until he showed me that he didn't feel that way back. I get it. I like sex just as much as the next gal. It's just that I have a pretty broad spectrum of frequency I would be okay with depending on what my partner feels like. Sex once a week or 2 weeks? Totally fine as long as the other intimacy is fulfilled. Sex every other day? Great, as well as long as it's an equal relationship and we both get what we want and non-sexual intimacy isn't pushed to the side, which sadly happened to me. In the end I not only felt really sore and exhausted, but also used and reduced my body. If we broke up because of sexual incompatibility, that would still hurt, but we could part ways amicably. This way he just hurt me for no reason. Comment 3: I get that sexual incompatibility can be a huge deal breaker for people, but firstly it's not like we suddenly were not having any sex anymore. In those 10 days between our 2 conversations we still had sex about 5-6 times, plus making out, plus some other sexual stuff besides full-on PIV. Also it's the way he treated me. He shouted at me, demanded we return to normal by having sex as often as he wants again, no matter my feelings, and with me being submissive. He also demanded an apology and an apology session. So much could be inferred. But before all that, for the last weeks and months he left me emotionally starved. He only looked out for his sexual gratification while I had to cherish the few little drops of romance, friendship and companionship. When it didn't involve sex or could lead to sex he was kinda emotionally distant. Cute dates, cuddling and intimacy without sexuality and hobbies together was few and far in between. I don't fault him for not wanting sex, I fault him for how he treated me and how little he was able to compromise.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My family wants me for Christmas after 8 years of estrangement, but can I forgive them when they only care about my grandfather's inheritance? My family has invited me, my wife, 27 female, and my daughter, 1 female, for Christmas after we were disowned 8 years ago. After my friends gave me different opinions, one of them suggested that I submit my problem here to receive feedback from strangers on the internet. I am a 25-year-old man who is the youngest of 4 children. My mom is 52 and my dad is 54. My siblings are my twin brother Casey, 25, male. Sarah, 28, female. And Michael, 31, male. For background, I was the family's black sheep growing up, and I was aware of that from an early age. You see, there are a lot of athletes in my family. My mom played volleyball. Michael played soccer. Sarah played softball. Casey was the team's outstanding running back, and my dad was a standout basketball player at a D2 school. My parents were always interested in my siblings and hardly ever came to my events, so I had to practically beg them to come to my tournaments. I was never really interested in any of those physical sports, but I was interested in archery, which my family referred to as a wimpy sport. I competed in over 20 tournaments between the ages of 14 and 16, but my parents only attended one. Although they never abandoned me, they never showed me the same level of emotional support that they did for my brothers. I was angry about that as a teenager. Every time I attempted to discuss this with them, they would accuse me of being attention-seeking. But this isn't the reason my family disowned me. I started dating Amy, 25, female, who was in my grade at the time, when I was 15. I introduced her to my parents and siblings after we had been dating for approximately 6 or 7 months, and they all thought she was great. Even though I was young, I could imagine us working together in the future. After nearly 2 years, I was informed by one of Amy's former friends that she had been unfaithful to me for a few months. I didn't know who the man was at the time, but she told me it was my twin brother when I confronted her. She essentially informed me that although she loved me at first, her love for my brother was greater. When I confronted Casey at home later that day, I was so furious that I gave him a sucker punch and knocked him unconscious. I acknowledge that I shouldn't have acted violently, but my animosity toward him and my family simply exploded. I was transferred to live with my 48-year-old paternal aunt, who was now distant from the family and resided in a different city about 2 hours away. In exchange for my family not pursuing charges against me, I could have been prosecuted as an adult in court. Since then, I haven't communicated with them. It was difficult at first, but I eventually got over my desire for a relationship with them with the help of my aunt and her 48-year-old husband. After attending a university in my aunt's city and transferring to a different high school, I earned my degree as an electrical engineer. After a while, I met my wife and we were married. I considered inviting them to my wedding, but I decided against it because I didn't want any controversy. After that, my wife and I purchased a home an hour's drive from my aunt, and a year later, we were blessed with a daughter. Then, roughly a week ago, my parents messaged me on Facebook to invite me to spend Christmas at their place so we could catch up. I informed them that while I could have other plans, I would think about it and provide them with a definitive response shortly. Later, I received strange friend requests from Sarah and Michael. Because she is 2 months pregnant and does not want to deal with any additional stress, my wife has informed me that if I travel, she and my daughter will spend Christmas at my father-in-law's place. I concur with her. I would like to know if it would be wise for me to go and try to make amends with my family. Having a hard time deciding what to do. On the one hand, they might want to apologize because they feel horrible about what they did to me. However, I could be forced to apologize to Casey if I go there, which is something I don't want to do. Any guidance would be beneficial. Viewpoint. To start with, except for your aunt, your entire family seems like a bunch of jerks. The only cool person here is her. If I were you, I would inform them that I am spending Christmas with my wife, daughter, and father-in-law, thus I am unable to go. I would inquire as to whether choosing a different time is truly vital to them. That is, if you want to make amends with them or if you're interested in finding out what they want. There are many various circumstances in life that can help you alter your opinion, but I must admit that it seems a little strange that your brother and sister decided to add you as a friend after 8 years of no communication, following your parents' Facebook message. For this reason, if you're interested in meeting them, I wouldn't do it at your house or at theirs on Christmas. Meet in a park or someplace like, and then see where things go. Tell them to stop contacting you and that you're just not accessible if you're not interested in making amends. Proceed with your life after blocking them on social media. What are your thoughts on the matter as a whole? If you were in OP's position, how would you respond? Tell me in the space provided for comments. Remarks from the community. As a parent, I can't imagine not being able to communicate with one of my children for 8 years after my other child done something so horrible to him, as stated in Minute Box 3852. He struck him then. I simply cannot imagine that. If my son ever did something like hit his brother, I would completely understand. We're all still only human, even if I'm not supposed to say it. It's up to you if you can get over the fact that they turned their backs on you for 8 years and left you for your aunts. I'm not sure if I could myself. I doubt anyone would blame you if you're unable to see them again and choose not to. They are unaware of the whole tale if they do. They are also not worth your attention if they are aware of the whole story. Surprise Pants exclaims, "My man, there are no good answers here. I would spend Christmas with your current immediate family if they value it. You might pick a less stressful time and calmly express it that way if you want to spend time with an alienated family. I can understand if your family is a bunch of jerks, but it doesn't sound like anything serious happened that you couldn't all handle. Reconnecting might be worthwhile. At least you can try, even though my pessimistic side says it won't work out. When you do, don't discuss the past with anyone other than your wife and your therapist. Get one if you don't already have one." Angry Patient 18 says, "Making amends during a significant occasion like Christmas is never a good idea. Since it's obvious that they want to get back together because of your child, your wife is quite smart to avoid this event. Tell them you won't miss your daughter's first Christmas but that you're open to having lunch or coffee in a public setting in the new year. One blow to a brother who betrayed you led to your disownment. They were obviously searching for reasons to get rid of you. Now that you have a baby to snuggle, you are only of service to them. Take great care as you tread. They won't be able to see the infant for at least 6 months, even if you don't make amends." Extra details gleaned from OP's remarks. "They invited me to a large Christmas family event and this is the first time they have been in touch with me in 8 years. My parents host a supper for my entire paternal side on Christmas Day. I believe they are attempting to take advantage of me because they invited me on that particular day. Additionally, this is how they got rid of me. My aunt was shunned by her family after coming out as bisexual to them after graduating from college. My maternal grandparents weren't living at the time, and my mother is the only child. My dad essentially gave me away to my aunt because the other siblings refused to take me. Lastly, I've always been envious of my wife's close relationships with her siblings and family. That is the kind of family I always yearned for." Okay, so everyone in the community believes that if the original poster wants to get back together, it must happen at a later date. Naturally, after trust has been built, no one gets to view the infant. In addition, OP provided us with additional background information on his family. Let's now proceed to the update to find out what transpired. Naturally, though, I must tell you about my playlists, such as this one that exclusively has videos with updates. Let's go on to the update now. Update. Hello everyone. Although the past 2 weeks have been difficult, I want to thank everyone for their support and guidance. Allow me to catch up with you. I wanted to post earlier, but a few things got in the way. My wife started having excruciating stomach discomfort 2 days after Christmas, making it difficult for her to stand. I hurried her to the hospital with her sister, a 30-year-old woman, and we learned that my wife had lost the baby. To be honest, telling my wife what had transpired was the worst part for me. My wife had to remain for an additional 2 days because of difficulties related to the operation. To be honest, I have been making an effort to remain strong for my wife and daughter, but I am currently having difficulty. Let's go on to the original post's update. On the same day that I posted, the majority of you left comments urging me to avoid spending Christmas with them due to the holiday's importance. I agreed and made the decision to stay with my wife for the remainder of the holidays. Why should I make time for them when they never made time for me? I thought they would try to argue with me when I texted them this, but instead they stated they appreciated my viewpoint and were excited to see me after the holidays. I therefore started looking into my family to see why they had contacted me. What I discovered is as follows. Michael is employed by a large corporation in my hometown as a corporate lawyer. According to his Facebook page, he married his wife in 2016 and has 2 daughters. It looks like Sarah's husband is a doctor. They had a son together, and she was pursuing a nursing degree 8 years ago. My hometown is home to a friend of mine whose parents are friends with mine. She informed me that Sarah had divorced her first husband, whom she had been dating for years, due to mail fraud when I questioned her about her. Immediately following high school, Casey married Amy, and the 2 of them have 2 children. Using Facebook, I was unable to determine exactly what he or his wife does for a livelihood, but the fact that they purchased a large home during the epidemic indicates that they are not having a lot of financial difficulties. My mother is very interested in the wellness community, and my dad appears to be experiencing a midlife crisis. I then started outlining the reasons they might have sought to get in touch with me. Money. Not likely, given my wife's and my salaries were less than my parents' combined wage 8 years ago. Money is most likely not the cause, given my siblings are not experiencing financial difficulties. Although it doesn't seem likely, organ donation might be the reason. Given that he is my twin, a Redditor suggested that Casey would be my most likely mate. Since he was mentioned in a Facebook post about skiing a week before Christmas, I don't think it's likely. They might be trying to get in touch with me to get a relationship with my kid, but I'm not really sure. I'm not sure why my parents would want to meet my daughter, as she is not their first granddaughter. They probably discovered my daughter's existence because my wife's Facebook page was open to the public. Since then, she has made her account private. Then I called my aunt, the estranged person who took me in, and told her what had happened. She told me why after all this time, they were contacting me. You must comprehend the reasons for my aunt's estrangement in order to comprehend this circumstance. 4 children were born to my 76-year-old grandma and 79-year-old paternal grandfather. My aunt was the 3rd oldest, followed by my dad, who was the 2nd. After graduating from college, my aunt started dating her partner and came out to her parents as bisexual. She was instantly rejected by my grandparents, who also forbade any communication with her. But my grandfather started contacting people around 4 years ago. My grandfather had been inquiring about my life and whether I was married or had children around a month ago. In response to my grandfather's backing of Casey for his actions, my aunt called him out for wanting to know about me. At that point, everything changed. My grandfather informed my aunt that I should be cut off from Amy since I had cheated on her with one of her close friends. My grandfather despises cheating since he is a devout man. My family had informed him that the buddy with whom I had allegedly cheated went to Casey and Sarah for consolation and support after she came clean to Amy. I approached and viciously attacked Casey and Sarah as soon as I learned of this. I did not touch Sarah, and I did not viciously assault Casey, even though she was the one who attempted to separate us. My jaw fell when my aunt told me this. It was unbelievable to me that they detested me so much that they would fabricate a horrible lie about me and disseminate it. Grandpa, who always believed Casey to be a wonderful kid, was startled when my aunt eventually told him the whole truth about what had actually happened, according to my aunt. My aunt refused to share my number when my grandfather requested for it. I understood my parents' and siblings' desire to contact me. It turns out that my grandfather threatened to cut off my parents and siblings from his estate if they would not offer an apology for their treatment of me and invite me to join the family for Christmas dinner. To put it in perspective, he is a multimillionaire. Therefore, they contacted me because they would not receive anything from Grandpa if they didn't, not to express regret for the wrongs they had all done to me in the past. What a group of avaricious individuals. My aunt informed me of this, therefore I made the decision to block them all. For what reason should I answer any of them now? To me, they're all dead. After everything we went through, I have a wife to support and an in-law family that appreciates me. But this is not the end of it. On my work phone, I got a call from an unidentified number 3 days after New Year's Eve. Because of my job, I frequently receive calls from unfamiliar numbers, and when I answered, I heard my grandfather's voice. He probably found my number on the website of my business. He started by apologizing for not attempting to contact me during the previous 8 years. He expressed his sincere regret for being unable to attend significant occasions like my wedding, graduation, and the birth of my daughter. His cutting me off didn't hurt me because we weren't that close before. Later in the call, he informed me that he was adding me to his will and severing the rest of my family because he was so disgusted with them. To be completely honest, I have no idea how to feel about that. Although the money would be beneficial, I do not want him to use it as leverage to pressure me and my daughter into dating. We spoke for around 30 minutes. My grandpa told me something that really infuriated me, but the way the call proceeded gave me hope that we could have a positive relationship. He expressed his disappointment to me about my daughter's refusal to adopt the family name. For background, the question of what last name to use arose after I married my wife. I was unable to adopt my wife's last name for legal reasons, but as a couple, we agreed that all of our future children would bear her last name. I started berating my grandfather at this time, calling him a senior old guy and a lot of other derogatory terms. I instructed him to never get in touch with me again. This man has the gall to imply that after everything I've been through, I won't allow him to use the money I get to manipulate me. I'll give the money to a local charity even if I get it. This is unlikely though, because he is a man of broken promises. I don't care how he perceives me anyway. Money is not the reason I want to be in a relationship with him. He had been trying to get in touch with me and hear my side of the story for 8 years. He claims to be disappointed in me when he does manage to contact me. My wife's and my careers are doing well right now, so maybe we'll be able to pay for our kids' tuition. I will only email him when I'm emotionally prepared. I've had a pretty difficult few weeks, and I'm hoping to get through them. Both my wife and my in-laws have made their Facebook accounts private. I don't understand what they do to try to get in touch with me. Hell, they would undoubtedly try to locate me by hiring a private investigator. I think they are unaware of my residence, but you never know. I've considered obtaining a restraining order, but it will be challenging because there are attorneys in the family. I've stopped using Reddit for the time being. I appreciate all of your advice and I hope this new year brings you all the best. Will it be? I want to start by sincerely apologizing for the ordeal you and your spouse, in fact, your entire family from that side, went through. Yes, like you say, screw your grandfather and the rest of your family and go on. Cool if he does leave you something. It's also cool if he doesn't. It's not that important, is it? I'm going to end this by wishing you and your wife the greatest possible future. Thank you for sharing, OP, and be careful. After all of that, I do need a post that lifts my spirits, so if you agree, stay with me and let's get started. This post, written by an ex-Wall Street person, comes from the subreddit Malicious Compliance. Legally, I cost Bank of America almost $8,000. For some background, I have over 30 years of experience in the mortgage industry. I am quite familiar with it. Bank of America has never appealed to me, particularly their servicing section. This incident occurred a few years ago. I recently learned about this group. To my annoyance, the mortgage broker I used to restructure my mortgage offered Bank of America the servicing rights. Usually, the organization you pay to service your loan is not the same as the one that owns it. I felt irritated. Since most people at the time assumed that loans would remain on the books for at least 3 years, I calculated that Bank of America spent about $5,000 to service my loan. Additionally, mortgage servicers receive 0.25% of your outstanding loan balance annually, which can be adjusted to 0.375%. It is derived from your bank interest payments. Bank of America revealed that they will be collecting a $5 fee for the convenience of online mortgage payments around 2 months after the servicing move. Unjustified money grab indeed. I consider myself fortunate to be able to contribute a bit more each month to my home payment. I therefore drew out $400 in quarters from my local bank the following month in addition to my home payment. I then proceeded to my neighborhood Bank of America location and gave them my quartered mortgage payment along with other repayment documents. I requested a payment receipt. In order to lower the current debt and, consequently, Bank of America's costs, I overpaid my mortgage. You can write a check, you don't have to pay in coins, the kind branch manager remarked. The branch manager actually chuckled when I answered, I could, but I would charge a $9.50 convenience fee for the stamp on my check and the ink used. They counted the money and gave me my receipt. The charges persisted the next month, so I visited another nearby Bank of America location that had received negative Yelp reviews because of an unfriendly bank manager. I followed suit. Write a check, the branch manager instructed. We do not accept quarters. Should I call the Consumer Financial Protection Board, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, the top bank regulator in the United States, and the banking commissioner of the local state and inform them that you would not accept legal tender? I requested a conversation with the district manager. A stench was coming from me. He reluctantly had the employees count the quarters after roughly 20 minutes, and I was given a receipt. I informed the management that the next time, I would bring dimes. I brought dimes the following month. He took them, but he kept glaring at me. Bank of America canceled the convenience fee after the payment was made. I refinanced my mortgage at a reduced rate the next month. For a service that they anticipated would last at least 3 years and 5 years to be profitable, Bank of America only received about 6 months' worth of payments.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
Am I the asshole for setting boundaries with my son's fiancée and refusing to accept her as a family due to her constant manipulation and pressure? Original post. I, 41M, have 2 kids with my ex-wife, 42F, a son John, 22, and daughter Sally, 20. I'm remarried to my wife, 28. I'm very close with my kids. My son is engaged to Abby. She seems nice but has been a bit pushy trying to create relationships with me and my wife, though she's also awkward with her. Abby isn't close to her family. She told us many stories why, and while some of her complaints don't seem awful, it's not my place to judge and I didn't live it so I can't know anyway. We've tried to be welcoming but Abby has forced her way into some family traditions where she wouldn't have been invited, and some where no one outside of a specific family would have. She has been calling Sally sis since they were only dating a few months, has an odd sister/mother-in-law thing she does with my wife, and the one I'm not a fan of, wants me to be like father to her. Not because we've clicked or anything. We are very different people. Not saying that in a bad way, just saying it's not based on how we get along or anything. My kids and I have a tradition when they come over that we have a private catch-up in my office study before they leave, which is now even more important to them because while they both get along well with my wife, they don't want to have personal conversations around her yet. Abby asked if we could talk, and after I explained the tradition, John later asked that I do it, saying she'd never had a caring conversation with her dad. We compromised that I didn't include her in the tradition but did join the two of them for coffee and let her talk. Then she started calling me dad. They weren't even engaged yet. John pulled me aside and begged me to give her that. Laid this whole thing on me about me always being the dad she always wanted right in front of her and she just wanted that. Told me she cried watching me and Sally together. She still gives me random hugs. I'm a lucky dad. I didn't like it but I do feel bad so I gave her that. She wants me to walk her down the aisle in the father-daughter dance. I don't want to walk her down, and I walk with a cane so dancing is hard. At my own wedding I only danced twice. John is begging for me to do one, preferably the aisle. They came over Sunday. John and I were talking. I thought to address it, when Ab walked in without knocking, asking if he'd told me yet. I asked what John said she wanted me to say about having a second daughter now in my speech and how I loved her. I just looked at him. She asked if I'd do the walk and dance for Sally. I said of course. She yelled she's my daughter too and I said it will never be the same, Sally is my actual daughter. I tried to explain that I'd talk about her being a happy addition to the family and I love how happy she makes Jack, which I thought was a good compromise, but she started crying. John apologized and they left, but he called me when they were home, nearly begging me to. AITA because I won't lie and say I love her or she's my daughter. Update 1. I had planned on writing this sooner but life got in the way in a couple of really good ways, but people were helpful and asked for updates, and I have a surprise-free day, so here it goes. On Mother's Day my kids and their partners go to visit my ex-wife. So it turns out my ex-wife and Abby are a lot closer than I realized. She calls her mom, which is part of where this comes from. Also apparently my ex has been egging it on. On Mother's Day they were talking about the wedding and I guess whenever Abby referred to me it was his dad. My son apparently told her to let it go, which led to yelling. Abby about deserving to be my daughter, ex telling her that she's right. Son telling her that I am trying and she should be realistic about things. Sally telling her I only had one daughter, which was apparently a response to Abby saying to her that as my daughters, they should be united. According to my son Abby was crying, according to Sally she was crying and yelling and kicked something before going to her room, and Sally told me she went off on her mom, but will not elaborate so I don't know what was actually said. But knowing Sally, hoo boy. Around 2 a.m. I got a text from Sally's partner's phone saying Abby really is great, she hasn't been perfect but you should give her a chance and you will learn to love her. I saw it when I woke up. I tried to text her back but was blocked, so I called Sally but they were driving. They stopped by my place later that day because I am on the way and my daughter prefers my liquor and cooking and they told me about the night before. At the end I asked to speak to her partner alone. I asked if I had done something to upset her. She was confused and I told her I was blocked. She said I wasn't but checked her phone and I was, and I said it was after her message and she asked what message. I showed her, it was not on her phone anymore. At that point we brought in Sally and caught her up, neither of them were happy. A couple of days later, John and Abby dropped by unannounced. Not something we really do in this family, but okay fine, I had mad salmon, does not take long to cook. I cook 2 more, and my wife serves while I make drinks. The entire night was Abby trying to bring up the wedding. John trying to change the subject, Abby not allowing that. We talk logistics because I am helping them get some good deals through some professional contacts I have when finally she just says so I was talking to mom, she said that you can walk me down the aisle and she'll do the dance, or you can dance and she'll walk, it's your call but you need to choose soon. I reiterated that I could not dance. She tried arguing that I had danced a little at my wedding but I made it clear that is different, and did not feel comfortable walking her. She got upset and said, Mom loves me, why can't you? I felt bad but couldn't lie. I pointed out that she had John who loved her, my ex-wife, friends, she had people who love her. She said but other than, ex-wife, those aren't my parents. I said neither am I. She was very emotional so my wife and I gave them a few minutes. My son and I were alone later, he looked exhausted. He said the problem was that after Mother's Day Abby had called Sally and kept saying they are both my daughters, that I did not get to be close with one but not both, and that it was them against me. But at that one Sally cried havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Things were said, grievances were aired. John had to hang up before it got worse, but I guess Abby was shaken but there was a new problem. Abby had decided in her head that I did not mean what I have been saying and was just doing it for Sally. He told me he would handle it. Ron Howard. He did not. So now I get text messages from Abby every couple of days acting like we have a secret relationship Sally doesn't know about. She even called herself my secret daughter and lolled. She invited my wife to lunch, saying 2 out of 3 of his girls going out. She has even started using the pressure of showing up at events like a recent barbecue to play a certain image. She hugs me more and holds it, wants to take pictures with just me or my wife and I, but always a few with just me to post with captions I do not like. My wife is getting especially annoyed because of how she is with her. I guess Abby surprised her with Father's Day plans for me that had to be shut down. As it is, she still inserted herself into the day, but she has a soft spot for her, and when Abby gets emotional she caves. My wife is a sweetheart. I asked him if he was upset with me and he said no, he just wished it was different. He said we're good, but he's worried he and Sally aren't, which is when I took the advice of some people and suggested premarital counseling. He said he would talk about it. Abby is insisting Sally go to her fitting. That shop should pay-per-view that potential Royal Rumble because Sally is not holding her feelings back anymore. I told him Sally loves him and I'll talk to her, but for now it is stressful all around. Abby driving my wife crazy with her ideas for what my girls should be doing, driving me crazy with dad-daughter content, drove Sally to the edge, and oh yeah, last night sent me an email with 3 styles of father-daughter dances and song options, so I'm not feeling any more respected or heard than before. The 6 of us have barely been in the same room in order to let things calm down since Father's Day, which was great until it was a shit show. Sorry this is so long, with all the craziness this is still the abridged version. We are supposed to meet Friday, Sally's partner and I have a bet going about how bad it will go. So onward and upward. I hope you fathers had a less dramatic day than I did, and by any chance does anyone know exactly how bad of a crime I need to commit to enter witness protection? Just curious. Update 2. I have gotten requests for updates on my situation, and as I enjoy a refreshing mojito and my wife her mojito, life feels good and the perfect time to amuse the world with my pain and familial drama. Plus a cousin of mine who apparently reads these and knows my situation gave me the convincing argument of dude, you can't keep people hanging. And how can I argue with that airtight argument? I apologize for how long this is, a lot has happened. My wife's pregnancy is going well, keeping her as stress-free and pampered as possible has been my focus. It is such a different experience this time, both because of how much more involved I can be and how much better a relationship I have with my wife than I had with my ex. My daughter Sally has been great, even her partner has been great, helping with the nursery or driving her around when I can't. My wife doesn't know because it is a surprise, but my son has been building a crib for the baby, modeled after the one I built for him and his sister, to show my wife his support. My son is a good man, and he is still in there, he just has a soft spot for Abby. Which I guess gets us to the part of the movie where Godzilla shows up and starts busting up buildings. So I called a family meeting with my kids to talk about the situation. Told John his sister was only doing wedding activities she wanted to and that the guilting request needed to stop, that this was hurting his relationship with his sister. Sally was happy I said it so she did not have to yet again. I told him if he did not stop her from messaging me I would block her with a bluntly honest explanation why. We got a lot out, John seemed to understand, but then a few days later they insisted on coming to talk. Sally and I decided we would get everything out. So all of us ate at our place. Abby started in immediately about baby shower stuff and I told that is the kind of thing we wanted to talk about. I told her that I understood she has been trying to fill a hole that she has, that she thought she was getting a father, a second mother, she calls my ex-wife mom apparently, and a sister. I told her it was still possible but that she needed to start listening to us. I told her that for the sake of family we would give her a fresh start, if she agreed that moving forward she would respect our boundaries. My daughter did not love this idea but loves her brother and was willing to try. Abby tried to say that since we were starting over we could define what the relationship would be and just be family. We told her we were not ready for that it needs to happen organically. She got mad that I am closer with my daughter's partner, which is true but we just get along, and that she deserved it for trying so hard. My daughter said something about trying things we actually want. She ran to our bathroom, he ran after her. After a while I checked on him. I could hear her repeating, "This is not what I wanted." My wife, daughter and her partner went out to the patio to give them privacy and salvage the night. After a bit I got a text saying they had just left. I checked in with him the next day and he said they talked more at home and she understood. For a couple of weeks things were good. The text stopped except the occasional wedding question, since it was getting closer. She stopped pushing herself on my wife and Sally, and we thought was involving us in less in wedding planning out of respect, since as it was they only got the venue at the rate they did because of my professional connections and they know I was willing to help but not interested in helping plan, even if I'm good at event planning. But then I got a call from the venue telling me the card I used had been declined. Now this is a specific card I use for big purchases because of the miles, so I knew it had a high limit. That was how I learned that they had changed dates by 2 months despite being informed I would still be out much of the money because it was too close to the date. I was furious. I mean I have been lucky in life financially but I am not blow-off deposits like nothing wealthy. Called my son, said he needed to get his ass to the house, just him. They both came. When they arrived, I opened the door. She actually started with, "Dad." I think I just replied, "You have got to be fin kidding me," and walked toward the table. Abby had the nerve to ask where dinner was. My response was not polite as I made it clear that was not why they were here. I hoped my son would not lie to me, so I asked what was going on with the venue. She started going into wedding details, but my son interrupted to tell me they postponed because my ex-wife was unavailable because of a surgery, and he had not told me because he was putting money together to pay the lost money himself, and he had just reached out to guests to let them know. And that is when Abby's mouth opened. "We have extra time to work on our dance." Now during this time my wife came home, and I was walking her toward the bedroom when Abby said that. My pregnant wife with me said, calmly, "I have different feelings about that and will elaborate further shortly," or something like that. Then I laid my wife down and got her water, turned on her symphonic covers of popular songs and walked back to the table and said something like, "You are out of your f***ing mind, have you ever been listening?" I made it clear I was done with this nonsense, we all were. And kind of lost it asking she did not hear us last time because her head was up her ass. She was stunned silent, "What a beautiful sound," and looked at me while I, admittedly with little filter, explained what Sally and I thought of our time with her and her attempts to force us to love her without even getting to know us. She started crying and stood up and shouted, "Then what was this even for?" John asked what she meant, if she meant them, and he started to freak out. She was frantic and said she meant delaying the wedding. Because, and I'm pouring another drink to write this, it was a ploy. My ex-wife and her decided if I had more time I would come around. Apparently my ex told her not to worry about the money because I am loaded. She has always been bitter. I make so much more than I did when we were married, as if that is out of spite rather than my career arc. I think she did that on purpose, frankly. But she not only told me that lie, she and my ex told John as well. He was distraught. Repeating "you lied to me," as she tried to spin it, but he was letting it out about how much he has defended her and covered for her, and she lied to him too. She was defensive and blamed my ex for telling her things and me for being stubborn. She yelled, "Why can't I just call him dad?" And finally, after so long, I heard John respond, "Because he is not your effing dad." She started crying and something about his being the one that told she could call me that, and he said he told her she might be able to eventually, but he had told her again and again to slow down. She started sobbing and went to sit on her chair but missed and fell on the floor. Appreciating physical humor to break the tension, I admittedly chuckled and hid my mouth behind my drink. This all led to a lot of sobbing. I said I needed to check on my wife, and as I walked out she was repeating, "I just want him to be my dad too." I came out and he was walking her to the door and apologized. I said not to. They left. He came over a few days later and said they had a long talk at home. He even asked her if she would have dated him if there was never a chance of being in the family. He believed her when she said yes, but she admitted I was a big draw as well. I was the kind of dad she always wanted. My relationship with Sally is what she always wanted, and the way she said it gave John doubts that she loves him for him. I talked about marriage counseling, how his mother and I tried it, and, while it did not save us, it provided clarity and an impartial voice. I pointed out they both like coming to me, but I cannot be impartial, and if they are trying then they need to do it for real. Abby texted asking if I was the one who suggested therapy. I responded with, "Does it matter if John wants to?" She asked why it was so bad. She wants to know what I think, and I just said John is the man whose opinion should matter most to her. They fought due to the text. She agreed to the counseling and the wedding has been postponed. I may have done a dance. So they are in counseling. He said she struggles, but I obviously do not know details. She is pressing for me and Sally to go to a session with her. Sally told her she did not want to hear Sally unfiltered, and I am not interested. Abby has been leaving Sally alone. She stopped texting me except for the occasional general question, which includes some attempt to go deeper. My wife still occasionally spends time with her because she's very into her pregnancy, more so than I like, but it is my wife's call. So that is where we are. Sorry it was so long, but alcohol makes for a poor editor. Update 3. I was told I should do updates here. People have been asking me to, and to get into what went down on Father's Day and at their mother's house. I have been extremely busy these last few months, but am enjoying my temporary unemployment and thought of this account because of the recent Thanksgiving drama. I will do an update and then we'll share what happened earlier. Oh, and to whomever made the joke that Abby finally got me to dance, that made me laugh. I shared that with the family. My time has been largely caring for my wife. I tend to dote, I know. We are having a boy. We are really excited, though neither of us really had gender preference. I have raised both, and both experiences were wonderful. Now we are discussing names, who we are going to honor. I thought everything had been quiet, but recently found my wife crying and found out I was wrong. Given how busy I have been with work, and my wife knowing I would be free again once we got into this month, my wife has kept this to herself. Apparently Abby has been pushing for one Thanksgiving this year. Things have been quiet with Abby. My son said the wedding blowing up woke her up, and that therapy had been helping. But then this. My understanding is that while John has been talking less with his mother because of all that happened, Abby did the opposite. From my wife's telling, Abby dropped by one day with my ex-wife. My wife intensely dislikes my ex-wife because of lies she spread about my first marriage ending due to infidelity with her, despite there being no infidelity and the linear nature of time making it impossible for us to have slept together back then. Before anyone asks, my ex-wife does not actually think there was infidelity. I would get into that, but I am sure I would sound biased. Anyway, my wife looked at our camera app, saw who it was and called my daughter. Apparently the two of them were keeping things from me because I was working 18-hour days and they did not want me dealing with anything else. I wish they had not done that, but I appreciate the thought. I am really lucky to have such caring people around me. My daughter called her mom and said something that made them leave in a hurry. She will not tell me what, but she smiles when I ask. I called John, but he was dealing with some hard work news, so I just was there for him and left the other alone. The next day Abby came back, alone this time. My wife saw it was her and asked her what she wanted through the door. Abby said to apologize. My wife let her in, she is too nice, and after a nice talk Abby asked about the whole family getting together for Thanksgiving. My wife said of course, she assumed as much. A couple of days later in our group chat we were discussing details, who brings what, and Abby asks what else is needed. I say John already committed and she asked what about my ex-wife, what should she bring? In the time I have known Abby she has never made an intentional joke that funny. So I asked what she was talking about and she mentioned the whole family comment, and my daughter and I both asked what made her think we counted her as family. She actually replied, she is my family. I don't have a dad who wants me, just a mom, and my mom deserves to be with family on Thanksgiving. Sally replied, well, we'll miss you and John then. Abby asks how she can say that. Sally asks how she can be so stupid. John says not to call her stupid and I say that is fair, but there is no real way she thought my wife thought she meant my ex-wife. At this point my wife had filled me in. And then, this is so stupid. She uses my son's phone to add my ex-frigging wife to the group chat. She then thanks us for the invitation and asks what she can bring. As I was typing my daughter beats me to it and asks what she thinks she is doing. She knows she is not welcome, but says it less politely. My wife types, you could not have thought she was included when I said family. Abby responded that she was not coming as my family but as hers. Sally let her mom have it. She already is not talking to her much and said if my ex-wife is there then she is not. I mentioned there was never a chance X was going to come and said I understand Abby and John wanting to go to their mom's house so she is not alone. John typed, plans not definite, will let you know. He has since told me that he is not going to go to his mom's place but wanted to tell Abby alone first. All I can think about is the comment about not having a dad who wants her, because it means she is still thinking about me as a dad, I believe. Just a negligent one. I mentioned that to my son and he said he noticed it too and had brought it up at therapy, because family is such a frequent topic, though I obviously do not know the details. Wow, I thought this would be brief but that was a lot. I will get into the crazy stories later if there are people seeing this who want me to. I do not know how posting from here works in terms of anyone seeing it, but this has been good to get out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Someone needs to explain sunk cost fallacy to John. I genuinely cannot believe he is still with her after the sheer volume of times she has disrespected him, his boundaries, and your family. Maybe this was back in an earlier post, but has anyone really taken the time to reason with him that there are other women out there and he deserves so much better than this kind of relationship? OOP, I had a talk when this started. So did his sister. After the blow-up with the wedding, his sister and I took him out for a game and some time to really talk after. That was when he apparently demanded counseling. I am happy that for now marriage is on hold, at least. He is seeing her a bit more honestly, but is still too optimistic, in my view. OOP needs to let his wife know not to let Abby in when he is not home. OOP. I have asked my wife to never let her in if I'm not here after last time. Well, actually I had already asked her, but after the last incident my wife has agreed. You are exactly correct that she takes advantage of my wife's kindness, though once our boy is here I think she will be very protective and will hold strong. I have told John that Abby will not be holding our baby, at least for the foreseeable future. OOP and his daughter need to have a serious talk with his son about Abby. OOP. His sister and I had a serious conversation with him a little after everything blew up. It seems to be what inspired both his demand for counseling and putting the marriage on hold. He is better about seeing her honestly. His sister said something about Abby having similarities to their mother, which would have been fighting words from anyone else, and I saw the temper that rarely comes out. But then he listened because she clearly put thought into it. I never thought about it. I am proud to have kids smarter than me. I know my boy doesn't come off as a genius in these posts, and fair enough in that department, but professionally he is brilliant. She laid her reasoning out in excruciating detail. He listened though because she was not enjoying it at all. It was sincere. Some seem to have clicked because since that talk he has been different with her. I just am not getting my hopes up. Commenter 2, when two crazies are feeding off each other's crazy, they can start thinking anything is possible. I have a feeling that even if your son leaves her, she's not going to go away peacefully. Her and your ex sound like peas in a pod, unfortunately. OOP, my daughter really went at him, pointing out their similarities. She made her case well, and thankfully it shook him up.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.